Have you ever had your hard work stolen by your own boss? I'm not talking about being overlooked in a meeting. I'm talking about him stealing an entire multi-million-dollar startup idea. An idea I spent nearly 3 years nurturing and perfecting down to the smallest detail. He took it, publicly claimed it as his own. But what he didn't know is that I left behind a trap. A trap that, once he stepped into, would bring everything crashing down. Want to know what that trap was? Want to see how a thief falls on the very blade he meant for someone else? Then stay until the end of the video. And if you love stories about clever revenge and dramatic turnarounds, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos like this. My name is Hui. I'm 28 years old, a programmer, the kind that's just good enough not to get fired but never good enough to get promoted. At the company, I'm like a shadow, quiet, diligent, always showing up during the hours no one wants to work. I'm not a smooth talker. I'm not quick-witted in team meetings. I don't enjoy fake team-building events, and I definitely don't know how to get close to the boss. I usually stay silent during big meetings, never raise my hand, never smile to win favor. But I'm the one fixing code at 2 a.m., the one quietly carrying the team when deadlines are looming. And yet, in the company's quarterly reward reports, my name never appeared. My boss, Mr. Lamb, often forgot my name. One time he introduced me to a client as some software guy, then turned around and asked, "What was your name again?" But he never forgot to call me when the system crashed in the middle of the night or when a client complained and no one else answered. That's who I was, invisible, forgotten, but holding everything together behind the scenes. It was during those quiet nights, when the world was asleep, when the phones stopped ringing, that I began writing the first lines of code for Rada. Rada was my dream, a product I desperately wanted to create but never dared to speak of. An AI-powered machine learning computer vision system designed to help small shops understand their customers the way big corporations do, with their armies of data scientists. Rada could track customer movement, analyze shopping behavior, and automatically optimize product placement to boost revenue. No need for extra staff, no expensive marketing, just Rada and a camera. The idea came from watching my mother, who runs a small convenience store, manually jot down which products were selling well, then struggle to rearrange her shelves every month. I asked myself, why is technology only made for the rich? Why can't small shop owners, like my mom, have access to smart systems? So I decided to build it myself. No funding, no team, no mentor. Just late nights, cold coffee, and the foolish belief that one day Rada would come alive, would do what I dreamed it could. 3 years. I worked my day job while coding Rada until 2 or 3 a.m. There were nights I passed out on my keyboard, days when deadlines at work were closing in, but I still snuck in a new line of code for Rada. No one knew. No one cared. I kept everything on a personal hard drive: system diagrams, camera simulation models, customer behavior datasets, analytical algorithms. All of it was my blood, my dream. Then, one day, I felt it was time. Rada was no longer just a demo. It could really work. I even tested it at a small bakery where my friend was the manager. After just 2 weeks, sales went up by 18%. I knew I couldn't develop it alone anymore. I needed a team. I needed investment. I needed protection. That's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I brought Rada to present to my boss, Mr. Lamb. I thought he would support it, help me raise funds, give me a shot at turning the idea into a real product. I thought he'd understand me. He used to be an engineer too, a failed startup founder. I thought he would be different. I gave him everything: the demo, the presentation slides, the financial model, the deployment plan. I still remember how nervous I was. I spilled coffee on the meeting table. But he didn't scold me. Instead, he looked at me intently and said something I'll never forget. "Hey, I never imagined you had such a big dream. I thought I had found an ally." I was wrong. Mr. Lamb, a man past 45, always impeccably dressed, soft-spoken, and carrying a calm demeanor, as if he had weathered every storm life could throw at him. In the company, he was considered a man of vision, not because of technical expertise, but because of his skill in managing people and reading them. I knew he wasn't exactly trustworthy, but when you're standing at a crossroads, with your long-cherished dream on one side and loneliness and lack of resources on the other, even a nod of approval can feel like hope. And that's enough to make you believe someone might genuinely have your back. He listened to my pitch as if it were the most brilliant thing he'd ever heard. Every time I explained a feature, he nodded thoughtfully. Every time I talked about Radha's future, he asked questions like he was seriously considering $1 million investment. This idea has a lot of potential, Hui, but you need guidance. You know, projects like this don't fail because they're bad. They fail because they launch too early without enough resources. You should let me and the company help develop it properly. Trust me. And I did. I trusted him so much that after that meeting I went home, opened every folder of original files, lines of code I'd written in the dead of night, financial slide decks, growth models, and sent it all to him via company email. I even wrote a follow-up message, hesitant but full of hope. "I'm ready to dedicate my full time to developing Radha with you, if the company is willing to support it. I just want a real chance to make it happen." There was no reply that day. No meeting, just silence. 3 weeks later, Mr. Lamb sent me a short email while I was debugging a system issue. "Thank you for sharing. After consideration, the company has decided not to pursue this project. Please continue with your current work." That was it. No explanation, no feedback, not a single word of advice. I read that email over and over, feeling hollow. I tried to believe maybe the project just wasn't convincing enough. Maybe they truly didn't see the potential. I comforted myself with excuses, until every excuse fell apart. 2 months later, while scrolling online, a headline jumped out at me. Software company X launches Vision.ai, an AI solution for analyzing customer behavior in retail environments. I clicked in, unease already creeping in. Then the demo video started. Within seconds, I was frozen. The interface? It was the one I designed, from the background color to the layout. The movement zone analysis system, identical to the hot zone mapping I had simulated in Radha. The dynamic product layout optimization based on shopper behavior. Word for word from my technical manual. They didn't call it Radha anymore. They renamed it Vision.ai, sleek, corporate, and polished. But every pixel of it, every piece of processing logic behind it, was mine. 3 years of collapsing onto a keyboard. Sleepless nights. A dream I had poured every part of myself into. And now, it was being hailed in the press as an internal innovation from the company's development team. And me? Not a single mention, not one line of credit, not one month. I spent nearly a week unable to touch my laptop. Every time I opened it, Radha's code would flash across the screen, a cruel reminder that everything I poured into it had been stolen, and I was powerless to stop it. I didn't tell anyone, not my family, not my friends. I was afraid they'd think I was naive, a fool who burned his own dream with blind trust. I just sat there, watching the name Vision.ai appear everywhere, in articles, conferences, product showcases. And there was Mr. Lamb, standing proudly on stage, speaking about a new era of innovation with the face of a righteous man. But then, one evening, after a week buried in shame, I realized something. I had nothing left to lose. And I had something he didn't. I had a trail. From the very beginning, when I built RADA, I had embedded a security mechanism into the system that only I knew about. It wasn't meant to prevent theft, because, honestly, I never thought anyone would steal it. It was meant to prove ownership. I called it the DNA code, a randomly generated sequence embedded into the core files of the system, following a unique logic. It didn't affect functionality, but it served as a fingerprint. Only the original creator could decode the pattern. And every time Vision.ai ran, if the system still retained the original structure, that DNA code would automatically send a silent ping to my personal server, logging its presence in real time. I reopened the server. I hoped I was wrong, but I wasn't. Over 147 pings had been recorded, each time they demoed the system, each time they showcased it, every test run in real retail stores. Every single one left a trace. I had the evidence. I had the original commit history, the earliest saved build of RADA from 3 years ago, the real-world test results, the source verification code, and now, a log of technical data proving that the DNA code was still active in the software they claimed was developed in-house. I knew the law might not side with me, not immediately. Everything I had sent Mr. Lamb had gone through the company's email system, and I hadn't signed any formal agreement protecting my intellectual property. They had the legal muscle to push me aside if I acted rashly. But if the law wouldn't protect me, the public would. And more importantly, I didn't need to fight back with power. I'd make the very system they stole become the proof that exposes them. So I started planning, quietly, without noise or drama. But once activated, it would make the thief pay, not in blood, but in reputation, trust, and the very platform they once stood on with pride. The rat had been cornered, and this time, it was going to bite. I spent the following week double-checking everything, not because I doubted myself, but because I knew I'd only have one chance to spring the trap. I cross-referenced the Vision.ai source code that had leaked in an internal demo on GitHub. And yes, it was mine. I used my own tool to scan for the DNA code, and there it was, every location, every processing function, exactly as I had written. No doubt about it. Then I gathered all the evidence, ping logs from my personal server, time-stamped with IP addresses from company devices. The original RADA project commits, dating back 3 years, with full Git revision history. Demo video footage from my friend's bakery, complete with clear dates and proof of revenue increase. The email I sent to Mr. Lamb, extracted from my inbox, complete with subject, timestamp, and attachments. I wasn't just going to prove he stole it. I was going to leave people with no choice but to believe it. I created a new, shortened demo of RADA, just enough to show that it was the foundation of Vision.ai. In the description, I wrote, This demo is from a project I developed independently 3 years ago. If you've used Vision.ai before, ask yourself, doesn't it look oddly familiar? Then I uploaded the demo to GitHub, included a link to the anonymized server logs, a detailed technical blog post, and anonymously posted it in 3 places: a Vietnamese tech subreddit, a Facebook group focused on AI/ML in Vietnam, an international startup forum where investors often browse for potential projects. I didn't tag anyone, didn't name the company. I just cast the line and waited. 2 days later, the waves began. People in the industry started comparing code. Some pulled snippets and matched them. A former engineer from my company confirmed, yeah, there was a project called RADA a few years ago. Others began asking how Vision.ai appeared out of nowhere when no one had heard of a dev team working on it. On the 3rd day, a major tech YouTuber in Vietnam released a video titled Vision.ai, True Innovation or Just a Stolen Product. I didn't need to say another word. The community did the rest. By Thursday morning, I got an email from the company inviting me to an emergency meeting regarding the Vision.ai project and recent circulating allegations. I didn't attend. Instead, I replied with a short email attaching all the technical evidence and ended with, "I'm not asking for compensation. I don't want recognition. I just want you to know, thieves never sleep easy, and I'm still watching." The company began to panic. They held a press conference denying everything. But the more they denied, the more they exposed themselves. Within just a week, a white hat hacker downloaded the leaked Vision.ai source code and publicly confirmed that more than 12 DNA code segments matched exactly with the ones I had published earlier. Investors began pulling out. Enterprise clients demanded explanations. Several partners paused collaboration to reassess IP compliance. A small trap, a silent ping, and now a powerful boss drowning in a media storm. And me? I still sat alone in my small room, sipping coffee, but this time without bitterness, only calm. The kind of calm you feel when you realize you don't need to shout to be heard. You just have to let the guilty fall into the very hole they once dug for you. Mr. Lamb still wore his suits, still smiled, still appeared in press conference photos, but the confidence in his eyes was gone. There was something heavier, as if he knew the game was over. At first, he denied all accusations. In a media interview, he said, "There is no plagiarism. Ideas may coincide, but our technology was developed entirely independently, in-house. But the tech community isn't as easily fooled as the general public. They don't listen to words. They read code." Then, a senior engineer, no one knows their identity, published a 6,000-word technical breakdown detailing 15 structural similarities between RADA and Vision.ai. Not just the interface, but the API calls, the data processing sequence from cameras, the log tracking per customer time slot. Even the log file format was identical. The media shifted tone from allegations to high likelihood of unauthorized copying. The tipping point came when a tech journalist unearthed an old blog post I had published anonymously 3 years ago, in which I described RADA's concept, vision, and basic architecture. The post was time-stamped, uneditable, and it predated Vision.ai by more than 2 years. How could they deny that? They couldn't anymore. By the end of the month, the company held a press conference. Mr. Lamb was nowhere to be seen. Instead, they read a cold, formal statement. The director of product development was being temporarily suspended to assist with an internal investigation. They didn't say his name, but everyone knew who it was. Most people thought I'd be thrilled to see him taken down. But I wasn't. I just felt relieved, like taking a rock out of your shoe after a long walk. It doesn't make you fly, it just lets you keep walking, pain-free. About a month later, I received a phone call from Canada. A venture capital firm I hadn't heard of, but the voice on the other end was warm and sincere. "We've been following the RADA project and your story. We believe this model could transform small retail globally, especially in places where tech is still far from local shops." I asked what they wanted. They answered simply, "Hey, you've built a machine. We want to help you build a team." It took me a week to decide, not because I was hesitant, but because I wanted to be sure. I wouldn't make the same mistake again. In the end, I said yes. A few months later, I officially founded my own company, reclaiming the name I had typed in Times New Roman at 1 a.m., RADA Technologies. I didn't need a huge office. I didn't hire dozens of people. I just needed a small team, one that understood the dream and never underestimated the person behind the code. Our first project, a chain of mini supermarkets in Quebec, Canada, signing a contract to deploy AI-driven customer behavior systems worth nearly $800,000 US. And Mr. Lamb? He stayed silent, vanished from the industry after the investigation. No one knows where he is now. Some say he moved into logistics. Others claim he's trying to become a freelance consultant. But I like to imagine this. Maybe he's sitting somewhere, watching a piece of software run. And suddenly, remembers the thing he once thought belonged to him. The price of a theft. I don't see myself as a hero, and I don't think this is some perfect revenge story, a modern fairy tale where the villain gets punished and the good guy lives happily ever after. Honestly, I'm just a quiet engineer. I don't like talking much. I don't know how to win people over, but I believe in one thing. Sincere effort, even when trampled, still holds value. Mr. Lamb stole my idea. That's true. He erased my name. Also true. But he forgot one thing. An idea doesn't live in code or slide decks. It lives in the person who created it. He took the software, but he didn't have its soul. He took the structure, but didn't understand the system. He could stand on stage for a few minutes, but he couldn't live a lifetime with something he never truly built. I left a trap, not to hurt him, but to protect myself. Because when you have no power, no money, no voice, you need a knife hidden in your coat. Not to attack, but to make others think twice before touching you. I used to think what I built was small. An AI system for convenience stores didn't sound like much. But then I saw how it changed real lives. Like my mother's, like the bakery owners, like the street vendor who once said, "If I'd had this earlier, I wouldn't have had to shut down last year." And that's when I realized, the most valuable thing you can ever create isn't software. It's the belief that you deserve what you worked for. If you've ever had your work stolen, been overlooked, abandoned, even though you were the one who laid the first brick, remember this. You are not invisible. You are not insignificant. And sometimes silence alone can turn the whole world around. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If it resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more real, emotional, and inspiring stories like this one. See you in the next video.